Hello, everybody. Well, I'll do it like that, I think. So thanks, Cassie. Thanks, Paul, for coming on for our little sort of moot tips session that we can share with other RMIT students. So to start off with, can I just ask you guys to tell us your name, where you're working now, and when did you graduate or will graduate from the RMIT JD? Who wants to go first, guys?
Cassie was volunteering me to go first, I think. So yeah, my name's Paul. I'm currently working at Morris Blackburn Lawyers as a graduate trainee, and I graduated last year, December 2019.
Congratulations.
Ooh.
And Cassie?
My name's Cassie, obviously, and I haven't graduated yet. I'm not due to graduate until about mid-year next year. So I'm still only working part-time, but I work at King & Wood Mallesons at the moment.
Fantastic. As paralegal, Cassie?
No. I work on the client floor, reception.
Reception. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So you're meeting some interesting clients as they
a
come
lot
through?
Of interesting clients. Jesus, yes. Yeah, a lot.
Well, thank you very much for taking your time. So let me ask you to elaborate, I guess, a little bit about those introductions and share a little bit about your own mooting journeys. So again, maybe we'll start with Cassie this time. Tell us your journey through mooting or with mooting, and what is mooting at this point given to you?
Well, I had kind of a really short kind of journey, because my first moot, I think, was in my second semester, and it was just the junior criminal law moot that the LSS runs. Had never done anything like that before, and I was so petrified that I almost dropped out the night before the moot. And we went in that and we did really well. And literally the next moot I did after that was the Vis Moot. So
Didn't you do
that was
the personal injury moot too? Didn't I judge you?
No. No.
Oh.
No, I think you said that before, and I don't know if I just played it off because I wanted to sound more experienced. But no, I'd literally done one moot, and not even a big one. It was the junior criminal law moot,
Cool.
which is why you guys saw me floundering so much in Viz at the start.
Yeah, at the start.
At the start.
So I should add to whoever does watch this, these are two superstar mooters. Tell us about the Viz, Cassie, quickly.
As in what it is?
Yeah. And more importantly, what was your experience and what did you gain from it?
Well, okay, the Vis Moot is, I'm sure most people know because you spruik it, but it's a big international commercial arbitration moot, which we compete in Hong Kong. So it's like a week-long competition, absolutely incredible experience. Like anyone who's competed in that moot will tell you that. But I think for me, I kind of fell in love with mooting really quickly because nothing was really clicking for me at uni. Like law is really difficult. The subjects are hard. But as soon as I started mooting, it was like a light bulb kind of went off and everything just started to tie together. And even your subjects start to get easier because you learn the research skills. And even more than that, you start to feel a bit of purpose. Like that was my experience anyway. It kind of felt like, this is why we do this. Like, this is why you learn property law, is to apply it in these kind of situations and like look at factual situations like this. And plus it's really fun, obviously, not arguing with people, but, legal academic kind of arguing I find very, very fun. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. Paul, a different perspective. You're a recent grad, but tell us your moot journey, your relationship to mooting, and what have you gained from it now that you're sitting in private legal practice?
So my moot journey began in the civil class run by this lecturer who, I think his name was Jonathan Coleve. And as part of that class, we all had to do a moot. And I ended up doing my moot in front of this barrister by the name of Nunzio. And it was, you know, I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it. As Cassie said, a lot of like law school start, you know, you're kind of writing these essays and writing exams, but like in mooting, that's where it all kind of came together. Here's the facts. Here's how we're going to put the argument to someone, and then how am I going to deal with the questions that come. And you know, from there, again, in that class, in that civil class, we had someone come in and chat about the Vis Moot, people who'd done it the year before, and I got interested in that. And I'd never really thought about mooting until this point. But anyway, I thought I'd give the Vis thing a go. And yeah, the next thing I know, along with Cassie and a few other people, I was in Hong Kong with Jonathan and Nunzio and having a go. And it was, yeah, like it was an intense experience, like 5 days over there or something.
10, but who's counting?
10, yeah, 10 days in Hong Kong. I'd never been to Hong Kong before, so that was great. But yeah, like I would say that the Vis thing was like the hardest subject that I did when I was there. Like I did more work on that than I did on any other subject. But it was also, like Cassie said, one of the most fun things I did while I was at university. And I think the thing that it kind of really sort of helped with is, you know, because you sit around in those classes and you're dealing with this high court case and that high court case, and actually that kind of doesn't matter. What matters is how you take the factual scenario you're given and how you craft the story that's going to get justice for your client. And mooting forces you to craft the story. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The tips and advice are already coming. I love that. Just in the way you describe what you got from mooting. That's actually really beautiful. Don't make me cry, kids. So now just some tips and advice. So, you know, the folks that are listening to this perhaps have never mooted before in their life. They might be standing up in the old magistrates court or doing a virtual moot or somewhere in between with a real life legal professional. By the way, I should add that the Nunzio, some barrister that Paul spoke about was Nunzio Lucarelli, a QC of about 35 years of commercial legal experience. But that's another thing that you guys gained, I think, from mooting, your exposure to these types of solicitors and barristers. So, yeah. So tips and advice. Let's start. Well, please feel free to offer any sort of practical guidance you can have for these first-time mooters. Well, I thought, if I may, just push you towards any advice around the written submissions first, and then we'll shift to the oral. So any advice, guidance, big or small, written subs?
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Written subs, I guess, probably my main piece of advice would be just to try and keep it as simple as possible. I think something I always struggled with at first was because you get used to writing sort of more complicated things in your classes. But when I actually saw like kind of model submissions, you see they're just really stripped back. It's really just the crux of really what you want to get across, your arguments, and maybe chuck in a couple of references. But I think if you go any more in depth than that in your submissions, you're kind of doing yourself an injustice, and you should really devote that extra time to fleshing those out for your orals. That's probably something that I struggled with, but other than that, I'm not sure.
Paul, anything to add? I mean, again, I don't want to force you if you've got nothing to say, but
I think the written submissions are an opportunity to figure out your structure. And I think I can't emphasize enough the use of subheadings as a way of being able to structure what it is you're doing. so like there's going to be various elements that you have to walk through to demonstrate to the tribunal or the judge or whatever that this particular thing has or hasn't happened. And you get, use of subheadings can help you ensure that you hit each of those things that you need to hit in order to prove or disprove whatever it is you're talking about. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. And orals. You guys were star oralists in Hong Kong. You really impressed a whole bunch of folks, not least me. So any advice that you can share about how to perform at your best? Paul, before we hit the record button, you already had one piece of advice, especially for the virtual mooters. What was that again? Not that one, the other one, the PG one. Oh, I'm just making that up.
Don't swear. That's my piece of advice.
There you go.
The other thing that I was going to say on the oral ones was write it out and then read it out to yourself and see how long it takes. It'll take way longer than what you think, and you're going to have to cut about half of it out.
I agree with
that was my experience. Was I wrote out this beautiful thing, and then I read it out, and it was like twice as long as what I needed, and I had to cut. And it's really about finding a precise combination of words that's going to get the argument across, and it's a good, trying to find a good hook to that, something that kind of not only explains your argument but works to convince and persuade at the same time.
Cassie, anything to add on that? And whilst you're thinking, Cassie, also just about how do you respond to judges' questions? Picking up off what Paul said, write out the speech and then cut it in half. One of the reasons I presume you have to do that is also because you've got to be prepared for judges' questions.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to add to that. I mean, I don't know if this is the right thing to advise. You might not like this, Jonathan, but I was going to say, I guess, you say, not you specifically, but they say, don't script what you're going to say because you don't want to be reading anything, right? But I think to some extent you do have to script it. So write out everything you want to say, but then I guess find what works for you in terms of some people legitimately cannot riff. They need to memorize that script. They will memorize it word for word, which of course has issues when you get a question. But as long as you're just ready for that and you can sort of pick up where you left off, and if the flexibility is not for you, if you can't do it that way, then don't try, especially for something like the civil procedure moot. Whereas like someone like me, I could never memorize something. I'll read it 1 billion times. I know exactly what I want to say, but I need to just have my dot points and then I can riff a bit. But everybody's different. And I think it's really about not, being honest with yourself about what's going to work best for you.
And how did you find that, guys? What's worked best for you? I mean, did you write it out the first time and just literally read it into the mirror, or how did you discover your mooting style?
Slowly and with lots of mistakes and lots of really painful practice moots in which everybody, I felt like everyone was laughing at me. Yeah, no, you really do. You just have to read it to yourself, or in front of other people if you're game. But the more you read it, the more you kind of will remember it, and you start to understand your arguments. And I think that's the essence of it, is get to a point where you could argue what you're trying to argue to your cat or to your mum, and just explain it like that, and you'll be able to do it without even really needing a script. I think that's probably
and that's how you answer the questions too. You're able to answer the questions when you thoroughly know and understand your argument and the factual material. And my experience was I could only do that if I had practiced.
Guys, I'm conscious of the time. Any final thoughts? Any final pieces of advice for our first-time mooters? Go for it. I've got literally 1 minute left.
That you made me think of in terms of, because this is going to be online. One thing I found when I was helping out the Latrobe Viz team do the online Vis Moot is that they be careful where you put your script. Okay, so if you want to have a script, you want to put it on the wall behind you, just be conscious that when you look up, it's very, very obvious. So have a think and have a play around with, yeah, exactly. So just tweak it, record yourself, and work out what's best in terms of don't look like you're reading.
Fantastic. Final thoughts, Paul, if any?
I just think you have to back yourself in. And even if you don't know what you're talking about, at least sound like you know what you're talking about.
That's great advice.
Yeah, and don't be scared, because like nothing bad's going to happen. And the thing is, like, even if they ask you a question, you don't know the answer, they will just move on. Like the judges won't be mean. That's my
Thanks, guys. That was, I think, 15 solid minutes of wonderful advice. Thank you very much. I'm going to sign off now because I do have another meeting, but I'll be in touch with both of you afterwards. Thank you.